Topping today's news, Tropical Storm Nicole expected to become a hurricane. Prime Minister Davis and the Bahamian delegation making inroads at COP27 after a meeting with the IMF. U.S. agencies working with the Bahamas Customs to fight the importation of illegal firearms, and police with shopping safety tips as we head into the holiday season. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jarino Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. Thanks for joining us. In an update on subtropical storm Nicole, a hurricane watch has been put in place for northwest Bahamas, which includes the islands of Grand Bahama, Abaco, Bimini, the Berry Islands, and New Providence. Subtropical storm Nicole is said to be a Category 1 hurricane by the time it reaches Grand Bahama by Thursday, the latest. This much according to Chief Meteorologist Officer Arnold King, who confirmed today that Grand Bahama was already dealing with sustained winds up to 45 miles per hour.
Nicole is moving toward the northwest near 9 miles per hour. With this motion, with a decrease in forward speed, is expected later in the day and a turn westward or southwestward. As then forecast Tuesday or early Thursday, as you can see from the graphic. We expect winds to be, well, as Nicole moves through the Bahamas, we expect it, the wind speed to increase and probably become a hurricane.
Mr. King explained that the subtropical storm winds extend outwards up to 275 miles, with expected rainfall to be between 2 to 4 inches with local maximum amounts up to 6 inches. Storm surges of 3 to 5 feet are expected with possible formation of waterspouts and tornadic activity. The Department of Meteorology is also requesting that residents living in central Bahamas to continue monitoring the system as further advisories will be issued updating residents on the situation. As for Abaco, meteorologists were still trying to determine if residents on that island can expect hurricane-force winds.
We believe the hurricanes follow an exact track. So it's possible that, and also that this track will move further downward, upward, south or north. So if it goes south, more islands in the northwest one will be affected, it will go further north, and possibly will leave Grand Bahama, and Abaco will be affected by hurricane force. Or maybe just Abaco, maybe just Grand Bahama will be affected by hurricane force winds. But it's too early to tell that there's a lot of uncertainty in the forecast. You can see that cone of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty as you get further out in the forecast. Yeah, now here's the forecast pretty certain, but as you get further out this way over days, it becomes less uncertain.
So uncertain whether Abaco will also be hit.
Well, the hurricane force winds. Yes. We're pretty certain that you're going to be hit with tropical storm force winds. But the Abaco will be hit with hurricane force winds, so still uncertain.
11 shelters in Grand Bahama will be available, with Abaco having 12, as all shelters in the country have been activated. Acting Prime Minister Chester Cooper is urging Bahamians and residents to not take the alerts and warnings issued for the forecasted storm lightly. In a statement this morning, Mr. Cooper notes that the projections are subject to change. He is urging Bahamians to follow the official release of the Bahamas Department of Meteorology. And while the Bahamas has been very fortunate thus far this hurricane season, Mr. Cooper says the government wants to ensure that everyone does all they can to protect life and property, as Nicole poses an imminent threat to the islands under the warning, and everybody must prepare for the worst, he says. He is recommending that those who do not feel safe in your homes take preparation to move to the nearest storm shelter. Abaco and Grand Bahama are currently directly in the path of the storm, which could strengthen over the next 36 to 48 hours. Boaters are advised to remain in port in those areas impacted. Mr. Cooper said the late season storm is a reminder that we are not out of the woods yet, as the Atlantic hurricane season continues through November 30th. Meanwhile, leave for all Royal Bahamas Defense Force Marines has been canceled with the immediate effect, with the exception of those on secondment, sick leave, special or approved international study leave, those in quarantine, or pre-retirement leave. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force, in a statement on Sunday, notes that those people attached to various outposts, inclusive of the Harbor Patrol Unit, the Port Security Air Wing, and the Military Police Force Protection Units, are to report to their respective places of duty or approved muster points. According to Royal Bahamas Defense Force Commodore Dr. Raymond King, the leave cancellation is to ensure that Marines are prepared for disaster response once a tropical storm has potential to affect any island within the Bahamas. To assist the fight against the importation of illegal and illicit firearms into the Bahamas, the World Customs Organization, along with the American Embassy's Bureau, International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, INL, and Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco, Firearms and Explosive, ATF, began their 5-day joint venture training with the Bahamas Customs Department to help eradicate the significant security threat due to negative impact stemming from the proliferation of firearms and other illegal weapons. Deputy Controller of Customs Ralph Monroe says the 5-day training will not only strengthen relations with other armed forces locally and internationally, but help combat the flow of illegal firearms into the country.
The training this week will comprise a total of 30 officers from the Bahamas Customs and Excise Department and the mentioned agencies. The participants will include 10 from the Royal Bahamas Police Force, 5 from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and 15 from the Bahamas Customs and Excise Department. And it will take a multifaceted approach to combating the illegal importation of firearms and their uses in criminal activities.
Among the attendees was U.S. Embassy INL Director Bridget Premont, who says since 2015, the U.S., through its embassy, has dedicated $25 million to assist the Bahamas with the fight against drugs and illegal firearms trafficking.
We know that transnational criminal networks illegally transport firearms into the Caribbean, hidden in air and sea freight shipments, on fishing boats and pleasure yachts, and via the mail and private package delivery companies. We know it's these same criminal networks that acquire U.S.-sourced firearms using straw purchasers, who are persons without criminal records typically, who can pass a background check. To counter this, we expect this training will improve customs controls, close capacity gaps, establish shared best practices, and cultivate deeper interagency cooperation and trust. It's that collaboration that will help us succeed. These are all elements, essential elements for law enforcement to be effective in this fight.
Ms. Premont concluded her remarks by reiterating that the United States joins the fight with the Bahamas to locate and interdict those seeking to import weapons from the United States into the Bahamas. World leaders, along with their technical experts and those bringing awareness to the issues the world is facing when it comes to the effects of climate change, are in day 2 of the 27th United Nations Climate Conference, or COP27, in Egypt, including our very own Prime Minister Philip Davis. Leaders have begun deliberating on how each country can commit to reducing emissions that is driving climate change. World leaders will also negotiate the financing of climate-related debt, adaptation, and mitigation. Climate justice is the greatest fight of our times, according to Prime Minister Davis. On Sunday, in his first bilateral meeting of the trip, Prime Minister Davis met with Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva. In an interview following that meeting, Ms. Georgieva says the IMF has to find a way to unleash more financing for the Bahamas and countries that are most vulnerable to climate change.
We have to find a way to unleash more financing for the Bahamas and all the countries like the Bahamas. Carbon offsets, carbon credits can be an asset class for the Bahamas that helps to finance adaptation to climate shocks.
The IMF has created a new $40 billion fund, the Resilience and Sustainability Trust. It is intended to address the impact of climate change on small island countries. Climate change-related events, including monster hurricanes, have cost the Bahamas some $4 billion over the last 6 years, resulting in an increasing national debt, explained Prime Minister Philip Davis.
We have made one step in that direction by creating first ever long-term concessional financing capacity at the IMF, exactly to support countries that are vulnerable to climate shocks. We currently have $40 billion available to our members for 20 years, maturity 10.5 years, grace period, and it is available not just to low-income countries, it is available to vulnerable middle-income countries like the Bahamas. Everybody who follows up this topic knows that vulnerability to climate shocks has not been accepted as criteria for concessionality until now.
Prime Minister Davis says the IMF's support is a step in the right direction. Mr. Davis also revealed the issue of debt sustainability was a topic of discussion, with the IMF's managing director offering to look at how they factor in lost debt incurred by consequences of climate change in the debt profile and how that impacts the Bahamas' sustainability. Ms. Georgieva has also committed to looking into how the IMF can assist the Bahamas in monetizing its carbon credits.
I'm very encouraged by Kristalina's support of the Bahamas and what we are doing. And she's going to lend her voices to some of the challenges that we have, which we appreciate, and we will lend our voice to some of the initiatives that they have started to create. I'm very appreciative of the sensitivity that the IMF is showing to the challenges that small and developing states like ours have, particularly with this existential threat that's upon us.
COP27 began on Sunday, with the meetings continuing through November 18th. Prime Minister Davis is expected to address the Assembly on Tuesday. And finally, in this segment, last year at COP26, Prime Minister Philip Davis made a plea to all world leaders that they should take whatever urgent necessary actions in requiring to prevent a climate catastrophe. But Prime Minister Davis is also of the opinion that the Bahamas must do whatever it can to help avert a climate-based disaster. And one of those initiatives was to invite entrepreneurs from around the world to bring their technologies and climate solutions to the Bahamas. In this next report, we hear how this invitation has already begun to bear fruit. Today, while in Egypt attending the Conference on Climate Change, Prime Minister Philip Davis, accompanied by Rick Fox, Ambassador at Large, announced the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the government of the Bahamas and Partana, a company that uses materials that absorbs carbon to build homes.
And I'm pleased to announce today a Memorandum of Understanding signed between Partana and the government of the Bahamas. The promise of the Partana material is both an exciting innovation in helping to reduce carbon, and for the Bahamas, also a path to sustainable, long-term adaptation in the face of climate change. Under the partnership I'm announcing today, Partana will begin a pilot project to design, develop, finance, and construct 30 affordable homes in the Bahamas.
Prime Minister Davis went on to share more of the details contained in the Memorandum of Understanding.
Under the MOU, Partana must provide proof of verification for the carbon credit which is associated with their product in relation to the technology used in the construction of the homes. Provided the verification process is successful, which I have no doubt it would be, over the following 3 years, we have committed that Partana will increase that number to build 1,000 affordable, sustainable homes.
Prime Minister Davis says this arrangement satisfies two key priorities of the government of the Bahamas, including providing affordable, sustainable housing and meeting the carbon priorities of the country. He said the government also wishes to create a new carbon-negative building industry, which would generate new job opportunities and training for Bahamians. The Prime Minister thanked Ambassador Fox for accepting his invitation to bring his industry home to the Bahamas, with a factory already located off Carmichael Road.
Their investment of $50 million into the Bahamian economy to establish the manufacturing plant is most welcome. We hope that this is just the beginning. Patana has committed to providing employment for at least 100 Bahamians over the life of the pilot project. We'll also provide training in the new skill set required to create the foundation of this new global industry, which the Bahamas is leading.
Speaking directly to Ambassador Fox, Prime Minister Davis lauded his past achievements and sustained commitment to the Bahamas.
Ulrich Fox, they call him Rick, but his name is Ulrich Fox. You're making us proud. You've always made Bahamians proud in all the things that you endeavored during the course of your life. And I've indicated that this is going to be what I call a Nobel Prize initiative. That's what we look for. And we hope that that happens. We thank you for joining us and making sure that you brought it to us. Thank you.
The Patana technology is forecasted to generate approximately 260 of the highest valued carbon credits on the market, paving the way for a sustainable future for the Bahamas. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.